The contact information is on your agenda that you received in the link that we provided. And then just the communication during the meetings, just kind of a heads up. As you'll notice, you are all on mute right now. And that was just for logistics. We have like 36 people coming tonight, and so what we'd like you to do, the chat features at the top of your screen in that little text box. If you want to send a notice that way, you can raise your hand, or there's little options there to clap, or I think heart or something like that. And then we won't be using this tonight, but we will in the next 2 weeks. The breakout room right here is that little double square, and we'll be using that in the next.
Somebody joined by phone.
Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, somebody joined by phone.
Okay. All right, so that will be kind of how we're communicating tonight on the chat. Next week and the week after, we'll be using when you're in the breakout rooms, we'll have more interaction, verbal. Okay, so what to expect during this series of meetings is week 1, we're going to kind of do some, it's a kickoff, if you will, and we're going to talk about the education series and all the different tools that we have for you. Next week, we're going to have program directors coming in breakout rooms. We're going to invite 5 different, we're going to invite sorry. We're going to invite 5 different program director or programs to come in and talk to you about their work and their challenges and their successes. And then you'll have an opportunity to interact with them in these breakout rooms. And we're going to do kind of like a round robin style. So you'll be in a breakout room for 35 minutes, and then I'll set the timer, and then you'll go to the next category. So there'll be 5 options next week, but you can only go to 3 just because we run out of time. But if there is a strong demand for, I really didn't get to see that, and we have a lot of people, depending on the amount of people interested, we could maybe persuade the director to come back the second week, maybe, if they don't have a conflict. So that will be next week, and then again, you'll have the opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback. Week 3, same thing, but with different programs. And then week 4, we will share the results there's a typo there, sorry, from our budget calculator and the different program meetings that we've been talking about. And we'll have a draft report ready for you of your feedback that will ultimately be provided to the board of directors and the superintendent. Rosalind, do you by chance have, I can grab them, but they're in my email, the program directors or the different programs that will be presenting? I can.
I don't. I just closed it.
That's okay.
Save it.
I think I can go off memory. So we're going to have Title I and LAP, special education, CTE, school staffing and school support administrative model, or from our level directors. We're going to have assessment. We're going to have some ESSER conversations. We're going to have some maintenance and custodial folks here to talk to you, and then health and HR, health services and HR will be here. So that's kind of the. Okay, that is the group that will be in front of you based on data that we've received on community interest of topics. Okay, Rosalind, here's where we're going to talk about the committee charter and just kind of give you some introduction of what this committee is all about. So Rosalind, I'll go ahead and unshare.
Okay, hopefully you can see the Budget Advisory Committee charter on the screen, if that's good. Really, if someone could let me know.
It's small.
Yeah, I'm going to try and make it a little bigger. How about that? Better?
There you go.
Okay. So first off, I would just can see it. Thank you. First off, I would like to say welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on this adventure. Unfortunately, we're doing this remotely. We just like all of you and probably many of your children have had to flex and adjust given the environment and the circumstances. We're not quite ready to have full in-person meetings, and we didn't want to limit participation in this activity. And so we decided that the virtual option would be the best option. That said, it's an exciting time for us because this is our big budget year. I say it's our big budget year because Kristen will tell you in our training sessions that we do a 2-year legislative budget cycle. So every time the legislature does their big year, we do our big year. And so that's when we want to make sure that we're calibrating back with the community and having conversations around the types of work that we do. And so that's the intent of this committee, of this advisory committee. And so we put together a charter to help define what we are and are not doing in this group. So our intent is to provide an advisory group that is designed to inform us on education funding policies and practices, to solicit information from you, and then to think through an equity lens tool, help us see where our blind spots are, help us identify where we're maybe tone deaf to community interests that we're not seeing, ask questions of our program directors and managers so that we can be better together as a collective. Our work really is supported by you, and we recognize that fully. Whether you are a staff member or a community member or a parent, we recognize that we're all in this together and that we don't have the only answer to how the finances work. That said, the finances are very complicated for school districts. I mean, it is a ridiculous amount of effort that goes into managing our finances. That's why it's important for you to understand that our intent is for you to have a better understanding of how our finances work in the district. Knowing what our financial landscape and budgeting process looks like will help you engage in the conversations in a different way. It's also important for you to have an opportunity to put influence in the budget. Now, we have a lot of information on the laws and the requirements of how we have to spend certain dollars and what some of the limitations are and our collective bargaining agreements. And we can't expect our community to fully understand all of those intricacies and all of those implications. And so that's why our intent is not for you to actually make the decisions of the budget. I think that would be far too great of an expectation from us. However, you have the ability to influence, and that can look like a number of different things, whether that's an opinion, whether that's an identification of an issue. We are open to the feedback and we are excited for that feedback. So please don't feel like any comment or any communication puts us at a disadvantage. We would rather know than not know. And then lastly, as far as objectives go, we want to find ways to engage in feedback. And so that will look like surveys or input through communications with our directors, as Kristen described, having directors come to our meetings in the future. As far as the structure is concerned, we'll be doing phase 1, which is an informational session. That really is left to tonight. Typically, we would have done 2 sessions of learning, but we are going to take advantage of the same opportunities that your children are having to take advantage of in asynchronous learning. So Kristen will share with you where she's posted some educational videos. We would ask that you would go out and seek those, to watch those videos and seek out information. And then we'll have question and answer sessions in the next session, just to make sure that we're not leaving anyone behind in questions and information. But I think that
Rosalind, you're frozen.
is it me?
You're frozen, I think so.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is my screen still visible?
Yes.
Did I move my screen just now?
I wasn't looking that close. Try again. Yes, you did.
Okay, great. So then phase 2 would be information that you would provide back to us. And so that's where Kristen indicated weeks 2 and 3 are the budget members sharing with you what their proposals look like, And week 4 would be us taking all of the information that you share back with us, summarizing it as a presentation back to the superintendent and the board, and making sure that we're representing a collective viewpoint from our advisory committee here. Because of the structure that we've set up tonight, you're not having the opportunity to engage in a typical way. You know, if we were in a public meeting, things might look a little differently. We do have a committee code of conduct. We have an expectation in the way that we would like to engage. We're here to engage in dialogue and to understand and to learn from one another. We don't expect that there are right or wrong answers. And so that's the environment that we're aiming for, is a trusting and safe and productive space for an exchange of ideas. And we would ask that you all provide us with that respect and each other with that respect. So when we talked about our guiding principles with the board, they gave some very specific guiding principles to us as we work to develop the budget. We now have shared some guiding principles with you as it relates to how we want to function as an advisory committee. And so we would like to expect from you that you will work to understand the district's financial landscape, legislative impacts, and the budgeting process. That means that you'll participate by watching the videos that we've prepared. We don't expect that you're going to have a full and detailed understanding of the intricacies because they are significant. We also want to make sure that we're considering the needs and interests of all of our students in the district. Many of us come to the table with our own personal biases or choices on, how we want to live life, how we want to educate our kids, what our expectations are. And we would ask that you, certainly represent your biases, but make a consideration for students that may have an adverse effect based on your particular choices and your particular expectations. It's important for us to be sensitive to our diverse needs and to continue focusing on eliminating disparities among all of our groups of students. And I would even add staff to that. The way that we work together as a diverse community is important, and I think is well served in the district in many cases. Certainly, I'm sure everyone can come to the table with a situation where a diverse need is not met. And so we want to hear about those areas because that's important to us. And we will work to resolve those issues as we can. It's our intent to engage in solution-based conversations and to consider your feedback. However, please note that you may have a great idea, and we want to hear them. We want to engage in those things. Sometimes they may not turn out to be legal or appropriate in the education setting. And so because you've made a suggestion does not mean that we will be able to implement it in every circumstance. Please keep that in mind. And then we will present recommendations that are balanced and aligned with the district's strategic plan goals. So our district website indicates what our district's strategic plan goals are. We have different focus points and benchmarks that we're striving as a district to achieve. And, as an organization, it's important for us to ensure that the things that we're bringing forward are aligned with that work, because that is our true north that we're trying to achieve. And then we've added this year, which is our equity lens. This is not a new tool. This is a tool that's been used by the district for a number of years. Many of us in the district as representatives or staff members have been trained on utilization of the equity lens. But these are questions that I think are important for us to ask ourselves as we're engaging in the conversations around budget and programs and how we spend our dollars. And especially when we're making considerations to either add and enhance programming or potentially reduce or eliminate programming as suggestions. So we want to ensure that we're focusing on what groups are affected by certain policies, programs, practices, and decisions, and what kind of impacts could be, the result of any of the conversations that we have. Thinking through whether or not those policies and practices or decisions would ignore or worsen existing disparities or produce other unintended consequences. We want to make sure that we have intentionally involved our stakeholders who are also community members that would be affected by these policies, programs, or decisions. Sometimes that's not always as easy as it sounds, but we want to make sure that as we're engaging in changes to the finances, that we're hearing input from those who are affected. And so in a lot of cases, what I would say that looks like, in this budgeting process is public hearings or budget webinars that share changes or details of changes, and then asking for feedback and commentary. We also try to post our budget, which isn't always easy to rifle through, but giving people an opportunity to make a comment or make an address us when we've made a change. We are also looking to identify if there are barriers to more equitable outcomes. So, what are those barriers and why do we have those barriers? And lastly, what are we going to do to mitigate any negative impacts that are identified in those barriers or in any of the disparities or unintended consequences that we might address? So, as it relates to our budget charter, this is our expectation of what this committee is going to be able to accomplish. And I have absolute faith that we will be able to make it through all of these activities and get some amazing feedback from all of you as participants. And again, I want to thank you for participating tonight and in the next several weeks. And we look forward to what's to come. I'll hand it back over to Kristen.
All right, thank you. Let me reshare. Now, I'm somewhat regretting the chat feature right now because I'm so appreciative of your guys' interaction, but I'm like, I don't know if I can answer all of them at once. So the intent of this section, we wanted to take just a few minutes and answer some of your questions. So if you have any questions based on, and we'll take about 15 minutes to do this, based on what Rosalind just said, based on how this committee works, based on any of the, if you have watched any of the videos, any questions like that, please put them in the chat. And I think ultimately we will answer all of them. We may not get to all of them tonight just because you guys have great questions and I want to be thorough in my answers. And then I asked my staff too, if you guys see a question and you know the answer to it, please feel free to answer. Okay, let me go up and see where I have the first. I guess if you have a, let me say it differently. So Christina, one of the videos referenced a link with acronyms. Can you share the link to complete the list? I will do that. I'm just trying to multitask right now, but I will absolutely do that. Just give me a few, probably during the break. I'll grab that for us. Is highly capable program included in any of the categories referenced, perhaps assessment? It currently is not, but if there is an interest in highly capable, we can, I believe the director of highly capable will be here for another purpose. So it's possible that we could maybe embed something. If you have specific questions around highly capable, we can certainly address those, or let me just write that down, that there is some interest in the highly capable program.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We want to serve the committee's needs too. And so if you have areas that we haven't identified in those 10 groups, we can try to work and access those individuals that could help to answer some of those questions. So you can go ahead and drop in the chat that you've got an area that you're concerned about or that you want to address or hear about, and we will do what we can to engage that way.
I see Faith has asked about safety and security as being a subcategory. It currently wasn't in the list that I gave, but again, to Rosalind's point, if there's an interest in there, and if any of you say, yeah, I want to hear about safety and security, go ahead and go to Faith's little chat box and just hit a like on it or something, and that'll give us some context about how many people are interested in it and so forth, in case we have barriers or limitations about how many people we can get. Please confirm the scope and limits of the community topics of interest. Well, what's going to happen is, so next week we're going to divide them into, there'll be 5 breakout rooms, and I'm going to say, okay, here's your 5 for tonight, and you choose 3 and say, okay, for the first half an hour or 35 minutes, I'm going to go hear about special education. So you're going to go into the break room, and then the special education department is going to talk about their budget proposal or their work, and really talk to you about the overarching, what is the work, why is the work important, who are the stakeholders, what are their successes, what are their barriers. Those equity questions that Rosalind just went over, those will be embedded in their presentation. They're going to talk to you for about 15 minutes, and then they're going to open it up for question and answer, and that will be about 20 minutes. And so you all, whoever's in that, you'll have, you could go to the first, second, or third session, but you will have an opportunity to ask that program director questions about their program or concerns and so forth. Does that answer your question? If there's more, just please let me know on here. Mhm. Am I missing? Okay, I can't see. If you have, can you put your hand up if you have a question that I have not answered? Do you guys see a hand up? I do not on my screen. Oh, there's one. Can you share an example of how feedback from previous committees has led to a change? I'm assuming you mean a change in process, or are you start changing committee? Can you clarify that for me?
I think that we can
go ahead.
We can provide, I can't think of a specific example off the top of my head. However, we did prepare a presentation to the board and the superintendent, and we met with the cabinet regarding the previous budget advisory committee's work. And I think that we would be happy to share that final report from our prior group. And I think that some of it, it's evident when you read it that we've made some changes. So I can't think of a specific example off the top of my head, but I read the report about a month ago, and I just don't recall something specifically that I could call out to answer the question, but we can provide that report to you.
I'm gonna make a note of that. C&I seems like a large category, assumes curriculum development acquisition is a part of it. Yeah, so C&I department is a fairly large department. You can refer to it as teaching and learning, curriculum and instruction. That department oversees professional development for our teachers. They oversee the alignment of curriculum, and there's going to be 3 of them presenting for you, and there's some really sharp cookies in that group. So I think they'll have answers to your questions, I'm sure, have no doubt. If there's something specific you want to hear about within the C&I or the curriculum and instruction context, go ahead and let us know here, and then we will give them a heads up to know to address it for next week.
I have an answer for the question on a way that a prior,
Okay.
I actually found, I had the advisory committee charter here in my folder. So one of the recommendations, and we'll still provide you with the list of what was prepared for the superintendent last time, but one of the commentaries was administrative spending allocated for salaries, benefits, and travel should be reduced. We actually did go from 7.6% of administration in our district down to right around 5.5%. So we made some significant reductions in our administrative staffing right after this was released.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so again, as you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We are going to, I'm going to share my screen. I had a 5-minute break plan for right now, but we're going faster than I thought. So I think I'm going to just push that till after the next topic, if that's all right. So I'm going to share my screen again. So Rosalind alluded at the beginning, budgeting by priorities and our 2-year cycle and our, I can't remember what you referred to it as, our big year or important year. So that has to do with our budgeting by priorities process. And what that is essentially is the circle over here is what we refer to as the circle of life in our budget office. And this is kind of shows the process of the budgeting by priorities um, um, approach. So the first thing we do is we identify funding, and usually that's a kickoff in December, and we look for legislative decisions and guidance for that, and then determine priorities. Our board, thankfully, has already determined those priorities for us and through their strategic plan and benchmarks. And so our system already has those kind of embedded in and the expectations around that. Likewise, the identify results are there too, because those benchmarks have been identified, and the system is always striving to grow and exceed those benchmarks. The proposals is really the first action step that your program directors or anyone with a budget authority in our system needs to write a proposal. And with the exception of buildings, so principals and school buildings do not need to write a proposal. They are allocated resources through a model. And we'll talk about that next week if you go to the staffing and staffing and admin model conversation. But a proposal is what, if the directors, when you come next week, they're gonna talk to you about the proposal. And there are parts in there that talks about, again, what is the work? Like, why are they there, right? And what is their vision for the work, and what is their approach for the work, and who are their stakeholders, and what's the case statement? If the district only had X amount of dollars, why should they fund your proposal versus their neighbors? There's goals embedded in there, measurements, and so really it's like a application, if you will, that a user has, or a proposal writer has to provide to say, okay, district, if you give me these resources, I will give you this, right? And then this over here, they're held accountable to. Then once the proposal writer writes the proposal, then it goes through a process of review and ranking. Review is probably a better term. The superintendent and her cabinet review these and also ultimately approve and deny them or edit them. You know, if someone asks for this, they'll say no to this, but yes to, you can have a portion of it or something. But it's a pretty stringent process. This we have, I want to say it's in the 80s, I think, for proposals. Jody might be able to tell me different, but there's quite a few of them. And so that's a lot of reading and study and effort that goes into providing a quality proposal. So this process goes every 2 years. So we are in the full cycle of the 21-22 year, and then next year they won't have to rewrite these proposals. It'll just be kind of a review year, and any major changes we would just tweak or something. But the full cycle is happening now. Just to reiterate, all of the general fund dollars will end up in a proposal of some kind. So even though the buildings don't have to fund or write a proposal rather, and they're model driven, their staff and their resources that associate that are in a proposal. And you'll see that, I'll go over it through it next on the budget calculator. Under there's classroom staffing is one of them, and administration is one of them for the principals and office coordinators and the counselors and things like that. Other funds such as your capital projects or ASB, those usually just roll over based on a more traditional approach.
And that's really because, if you'll go back to that slide for me, Kristen. Yeah, that's really because their revenues come in a much different way than our general fund. So these are different checking accounts that we're talking about when we're saying these funds. That's how school districts operate on a fund system, which is basically like saying checkbook 1, checkbook 2, checkbook 3. So checkbook 1 would be our general fund. It's where we put all of our main operating activities. It's where most of our revenue comes in at with the enrollment. And then we have several other checkbooks that are meant for very specific things. So we have a checkbook for the advisor, the ASB, what's the A? student
Associated
activity.
student body.
Associated student body, thank you. The Associated Student Body Funds, which is monies that are raised by students, those aren't our funds, so we don't have any real activity in setting the budget for them. We also have trust funds that we hold for scholarships, things like that. Then we have our capital projects fund, which is our building fund. That's where when you approve a bond for the district, monies go into that and we buy things out of that. So those are the different types of checkbooks that Kristen's referring to, and that there's different functionality within each of those checkbooks. We don't need to do a detailed budgeting process because the expectation of how we spend those funds is different.
Thank you. This is just a sample here of a template of one of those budgeting by priorities proposals that the budget managers are asked to fill out. And this is just a sample of kind of the guiding questions that we provide for them of what they're asked to put on there. So just wanted to include this, and I will be posting this presentation along with all future presentations on the Budget Advisory Committee webpage. Okay, before I go on, I want to stop a minute and see about questions related to this topic. Let me make sure. I can't see the chat. There we go.
When we say curriculum and instruction language, are we just talking about the purchase of the materials and the programming that is used to educate in Spanish or Chinese or whichever language we're talking about? We're not asking about the actual like English language learners program. I just want a clarification. Okay, thank you.
And I see that equity focused music curriculum is a focus area that you're interested in, and I will note that. Equity. Okay. I'm gonna see. Okay, I think of that. Okay. We do have 90 proposals, Jody says. Also interested in the equity and inclusion focus related to curriculum and instruction?
That's what they said, yes.
That's what they said, okay. Got it. Okay. Next, let me make sure there aren't any more. Okay. Okay, great. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to jump to the next portion of the presentation. Okay. So we're going to talk about the budget calculator. And I hope this works. If it doesn't, I'll get there another way, but I should be able to hit a link here, and I hope you can follow me with my sharing. Can you see Budget Advisory Committee member page? Rosalind?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. So that's how you guys got here tonight, right? You clicked on Wednesday and then you went to this click here to join. So on this same page, I just want to scroll down. There's the charter that Rosalind spoke of earlier, and then there's this budget calculator right here. So what this is a simulation of our 2021 budget. And Rosalind, let me know if it doesn't follow.
It did. I see the calculator.
So when you hit that link, you're gonna see this little explanation of what this is. And I just kind of want to walk you through and give you some context about, because we would like each of you to fill this out and submit if you haven't already. I'm going to put myself as a staff member. Continue. Okay, so here's our overarching budget that we have in the current 2021 year. We have the 502.8 in revenue, and these are the different categories those come in. And then we have the strategic plan initiatives here for on the expenditure side. You'll notice they balance. Under academic excellence, for example, if I click here, I'm going to see all the proposals that have been submitted, those 90 proposals we talked for, right? So if I was to open advanced programs, for example, actually, what is advanced programs? What do you mean? Well, go into this little icon here and it talks a little quick blurb about what advanced programs represents from this purpose. And then if you want more detail, you can go in. Now here's the last proposal that was submitted a couple years ago. Now remember, these are every 2-year proposals, so some of this could be maybe old news, like, oh, they've done that, gone, and they're onto something different. Generally speaking, I mean, up here, the issue, vision, approach should be pretty close. That doesn't change generally. The stakeholders generally don't change. Case statement wouldn't change because it's still important yesterday. It's important tomorrow. The goals may change because if they're trying to hit a certain mark and they hit it, well, now they have a new goal or a new approach. So you might see differences in approaches or goals here. And then down here shows kind of the scope of work from here are the resources provided. Here are the activities that they operate with those resources, and here are the intended outcomes. And so that's just kind of how you can read the proposal itself. And if you go all the way down here at the bottom, this little grid was, so again, this is from the 1920 because that's when they wrote these proposals. These are the resources kind of broken down that support this work in this particular proposal. So, you know, you have one full-time equivalent staff member, and then there's the combo of the salaries and benefits. And then you have, you know, some basic, and these are the different funding sources over here. Okay, just so how you read that. If there's any questions on that, I ask you to stop me or put it in the chat. So then if I wanted in this advanced programs one, let's say I'm like, okay, I really am passionate about this program and I would like to see the district put more money into this program. So I'm going to go here and they're in $100,000 increments. And so let's say I want it to add $500,000 to this program because I'm really passionate about it. And then I go to submit. Oh. I'm going to put here because I don't need, just kidding. I'm going to do this one, right? See what it says. And this is what you get at the end. So increase. Now, if I
Did you also indicate that they could share a comment?
Yeah, let me go back.
Saying that.
Let me go back in because I personally have never gone that far as a user, so I was kind of surprised to see that last part. So I'm going to do it again as a staff member. Again, though, so if I drive into this guy right here and I can add a comment, whatever that may be, right? I like advanced programs. I don't know, whatever you want to do there. And then again, I want to add my 500,000. What I want you to notice before you hit submit is you go up here, see this right here? This is now an unbalanced budget because we've just added $500,000 to it. And so our expenditures now exceed our revenues. So what you would have to do in order to balance that, you're going to have to go somewhere else. Let's see, I will go into
Careful
assessment.
what you pick.
I know, right? This is very random, very random. I'm going to go into assessment and I'm going to minus that by 500,000.
I just want to emphasize that this is not representative of how we make budget decisions. So
no, absolutely not. But if I'm a user and I'm passionate about advanced programs, all I want to mention is this, you got to kind of keep your eye on this up here because you go up somewhere, you got to go down somewhere else. And then you would hit save and submit. So I'm going to pause now to see if anyone has any questions about the calculator.
Here's a question about whether or not you can do this from a phone. And, you know, I didn't try it, but I will.
Okay, so I'm going to take the next question while you're checking on that, Rosalind. Question about the influence of this tool on the district. With the city,
Yeah,
they took public input using a similar tool, and ultimately it was viewed as an educational exercise and didn't impact. Oh, so what's going to happen is the data from this is going to be shared with the superintendent and the cabinet. So that they have community. This is a portion of the influence of decisions. So it's important for the decision makers to know where the community stands. Okay, so to Rosalind, do you want to add to that? I see you're saying something.
No, I think that was perfect. And I guess I will add to it. You know, our intent is to seek feedback and understanding. I do appreciate that it is an educational exercise for a couple of reasons. One, it informs you about what we have in our budget, and it informs you of some of the difficulties in making decisions. And that as you try to balance the budget by increasing those programs which you think are valuable, it does represent that there's a decrease somewhere else that has to happen. So I think that it just certainly serves an educational purpose. But our intent, and actually we've already taken one sweep of this data because it's been out on the public website. Some of you may already have taken it through that lens or through Facebook. We took a sweep of that data. I provided all the commentary, and I provided the ups and downs to our cabinet members today to indicate where we're seeing trends. And so we're beginning that conversation now as we've made some initial decisions about budgets. So that information will directly inform the decisions that we're making as we speak.
And I'd like to add too that the information collected off that budget calculator, there are some strong opinions or passion, I would say, about the programs that you're going to see in the next 2 weeks. So those topics kind of surface to the top, and we're offering those for your feedback because we're seeing community has an interest in those. Did I miss any other questions? Did you find out about the cell phone, Rosalind?
No, it's going to take me a minute.
Okay, I'll get back to you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the asynchronous training that's out there. I'm going to ask Courtney Leach, our grants manager. Did Catherine get your slide today? Or thumbs up or something? Let me see if I can find you on here.
Yes, we can post the budget calculator data that I shared with the cabinet to our internal website.
Okay. So I'm going to actually, without asking, I can just look for myself here. Okay, so I'm still on the Budget Advisory Committee member page. Here's video number 1, education series, video number 2, video number 3, and there will be one on ESSER soon, which ESSER, remind me, Rosalind, elementary and secondary education relief. Am I saying that right? Is that the acronym? If any of you have watched the videos, I've asked you to catch me when I say an acronym, because we all do it all the time, and I'm going to really try not to do that. So,
sorry, I'm trying to answer 3 questions at once.
Oh, no problem. I was just going the ESSER acronym. We'll get that to you.
Elementary and Secondary Education Relief Act.
Okay, thank you. All right, so what we're asking of all of you, and I know some of you have already done this, but between now and next Wednesday, we're asking that you guys go in and watch these videos and take notes. Anything you have questions on, I want you to capture those, and then we're here to answer those for you. So that was kind of a homework that we have for you. So we'd like you to work on the budget calculator and give us your feedback on that. and then watch these videos and capture any questions that you may have, or additional information that you want to know. So that is, and then like I said, there will be one more probably by tomorrow morning, I'm thinking. Let me, I have multiple presentations up. I got to make sure I have the right one.
Okay, if I answer Sean Whalen's question for a second, I hope I got your name right. Sorry if I didn't. That you hear from others and you share the frustration that the budget calculator simulates competition between programs for resources rather than competition between activities within the programs. I think that both are applicable. Yes, that's true as it relates to the budget simulator, but I would share that every dollar that is in our budget competes against administration. And so we actually keep a tracking, a monitoring log of all the administrative positions that we have in the district. And right now we're at 200, and we've been at 200 for 3 years now. And we were at 237, and that's where we brought down the number from 237 down to 200. That's not all people who are high level paid administrators. This would be people who are considered administrative through OSPI's lens. So that could be office paras, that could be office professionals and professional technical staffs as well. So I totally appreciate your comment. You're right. That is what the simulator does, but the intent of the simulator is not to expressly or implicitly say that administration isn't an issue. We look at administration for the whole district every time we make a decision on whether or not funding needs to change.
Okay. And I know to add to that, I guess we were at one point talking about there's certain activity codes that say whether you're teaching or whether you're in curriculum or whether you're health services and that type of thing, but it didn't give enough context to the program, or it didn't have those proposals. It was kind of parsed out by itself. We did try that, but it didn't communicate. I don't think it communicated the way that the community would like either in that case. But we will continue to work on things like that to try and be as transparent as possible. These budgets, school district budgeting is pretty complicated and complex, and we try every year to try and put it in terms, just to not do district speak, right? To say, okay, here's what we have and how we're spending it. So I do appreciate that from Sean. We'll take that into consideration as we move forward.
You guys have great questions and comments.
I got to see how far up I go, though, not see them. I can see the first table and the data together. Okay. There's that one. That would be great. Thanks. Did anyone answer Jennifer yet? To your earlier point, it's very hard to figure out what to cut from other items to balance suggestions to add and apply the equity lens without more understanding of other item programs and overall. Agreed. When you're in there, I mean, the best insight that we can provide are those proposals, and that is where hopefully the program director at the time has provided enough context to what the work is and how they're applying those resources. Obviously, we can't have everybody here during this time, but if you have specific questions about a particular proposal, if the proposal didn't dive deep enough for you, go ahead and let us know, and we'll see if we can get those answers back to you. It may not be through a presentation, but we can certainly talk to that director and get some information back.
So Chelsea has asked, is there a way to add nuance to our input to the budget calculator, discussing aspects of these broader categories rather than the broader categories themselves? So, we tried to create a budget calculator that was high level enough that it was not overbearing and detailed enough that it would provide you enough information to actually learn and educate and interact with. So we had another version, and it was just so it was so deep. because what it did was it broke down within each proposal the number of staff and, you know, supplies and all of that. But when you really got down into it, it was overwhelming, I guess is the way I would describe it. So yeah, there's a way to do it, but we chose to utilize the current method because it was the most functionally available way to interact, if that makes sense.
Okay. I don't know if this has been answered. Christina, was the cell phone question about Teams on the cell phone or being able to access the budget calculator? I think it was the budget calculator. Wasn't it, Rosalind?
It seems, yeah, it seems we've had that question answered. It seems that
Okay, sorry.
some have been able to interact with the chat feature or the comment feature on their phone, and others have not. And so it may depend on your browser carrier. That could be part of the problem.
Rosalind has I apologize, I think I'm behind on the questions. The Faith Brown, is this committee reviewing whether or not funding for administration needs to change when considering balancing the budget? Have we addressed that?
I'm sorry, I overlooked that one. Thank you. Is this committee reviewing whether or not funding for administration needs to change when considering balancing the budget? I think that you're certainly able to make recommendations to what you think would need to change within administration, whether that be we have too many or whether that be that they don't do the right things. We're willing to accept that feedback. You have that opportunity to leave commentary on that. So I'll say that, you know, with the significant changes we made 2 years ago, I don't know then where that leaves people's perceptions. I know that there was a lot of commentary 2 years ago on being overburdened with administration, and we made reductions to offset that. And I'm certainly sure that there are opinions on where we can make additional reductions. So we're happy to take that feedback and move it forward.
I think a new one just, Jennifer, I'm just trying to scroll down here and make sure I catch them all. Is there any way to add nuance to our input in the budget calculator, discussing aspects of these broader categories rather than the broader categories themselves?
I answered that question.
You did? That's
Thank
what
you. Yeah.
Sounds familiar. Let me go down. Is that the last question you're showing in the chat?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So unless there are other questions that we can answer, we intentionally are ending early tonight so that you can take this extra time between now and 7:30 to watch the videos if you haven't already, and to go into that budget calculator and you know, experience it and submit something. One of the things we're finding is there's a lot of people going in and playing around, but there's there's I think over 800 people have been in there playing around, but as of yesterday, it was like 96 have only submitted. So people aren't actually pulling the trigger and submitting data. They're just kind of what if, or, you know. So my request of you is if you could go in and actually submit your preferences or your aspects, that would be appreciated. So watch the training videos, document any questions on any of it, and submit your budget calculator recommendations. And other than that, we'll see you next week, the 26th, same time, 5:30 to 7:30. And we're going to kick that meeting off with some questions and answers. Because of time constraints, while you are in the breakout sessions with your program directors, we will work on answering those questions while you're in there. So I think that's probably how we'll have to do that. So if there aren't any other questions, oh, I see a couple coming in, hang on. Once you submit, you cannot make a change, but you can go in again and do an, you know, if you want to. I think submitting, you know, it logs it as a vote, if you will. Okay. Am I missing any? Okay, I see Christina, please consider other methodologies for individuals to share feedback when technology access is an issue. I do appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to write that down.
I would add to that. I appreciate that comment, and we try to put out a number of different tools. Not all of them will work for everyone, and we recognize that. And in some cases, I'm sure there'll be a circumstance where none of them will work for someone, and that's something that we're working on. In a typical year, this would be an in-person meeting where we would have better access to engage in a different way. But the circumstances are what they are. So I would say that we do have an info at Tacoma Schools, or I can't remember the name of the question or the email address, but we would always be welcome to submit a comment or a question about our budget through the district's info at tacoma.k12.wa.us. We'll take phone calls for anybody who wants to provide commentary. So if you know people and they don't have access to technology and they want to provide a comment, we're happy to hear from them. And to your point, it's our responsibility to go out and seek that feedback. I think we're somewhat limited in being able to do that this year. We'll also have budget webinars that'll happen in the next month after we're done developing the budget and we've got a draft budget that's presented. We'll be doing budget webinars where there'll be an additional opportunity for engagement and interaction and understanding around what's in that budget. And we'll have a budget hearing physically on site for our preparation of adoption. We'll do that June 24th, and we're intending to adopt the budget July 22nd at this point. And then I would add one more thing is that in the past, we've also done surveys that can be completed. We did a survey back in January, I believe. So at this point, it's not really valid for what we're trying to accomplish today, but it was a great starting point when we were back in January. So just some other opportunities that are out there. This calculator isn't the only tool that we're relying on to gather feedback, but it's one of many different formats. But you're absolutely right. I appreciate your point.
I'd like to respond to Jennifer's question. Should we submit our recommendations now or wait to hear from the program directors? Absolutely. If you've got things to say now, go ahead and submit them, and we will provide them to them. And then, if you have the opportunity to say it again to them, that's fine too. But that's part of the reasons why we want this recorded, because we want to be able to go back and capture your comments, and so that they are taken seriously and addressed. Okay. So if you've got stuff that you can submit now, we're happy to have it.
Or if it needs to go through email, is the email on the web page?
It's on. So if you pull your agenda, you can go to either my email or Rosalind's email. Let me pull that up for everyone. There we go. It's on the agenda. I'll share this real quick. So there they are right here. So you can, KBell2 is my email, and Armadina or CFO at Tacoma at .k12.wa.us also. There's that right there, that one. And these are links, so when you go into the agenda, you should be able just to hit that, and then you can email us directly. And there's the budget calculator again. And as soon as we have an agenda for next week, I'll be working on that probably tomorrow. We will load that into this section here for May 26th, and then I will be providing you a new link. Okay, we can go back to the comments because I hear my little beep going off here.
That's just me sending people hearts on
okay.
their comments. That's it.
Okay.
Just sending love and appreciation to all of you.
So it's 6:30. I'm really happy about the time. I apologize for the format. We would love to be in person with you, but hopefully maybe next year we can do it in person. So if you have any
the best of it though, because we're going to make the best of it because we know how to do this online now with our kids
True.
having done it for so long, right?
True. True. Okay, so keep the comments coming, and otherwise we will see you next week. Okay,
Thank you
thank you
all.
guys.
Appreciate you. Thank you for joining. Awesome. Well done. Good job, team. Proud of you.
Yeah.
You guys do good work.
I'm really thankful for you guys helping out with the chat. I didn't anticipate that. I'm happy they're communicating though, but I was like, oh no, I wasn't anticipating that level of, which I just didn't think it through, I guess. So, yeah, thank you for that. So I will, I'm sent out an email tonight, right before this meeting. I sent it out for the program directors with talking points and what to expect. And then I'm going to have a debrief meeting with them like this, because I know there was some anxiety last time.
I think they should be prepared.
Yeah.
Because this cruise seems like they've got a lot they want to know.
Sean, Tom, excuse me. Once you can go ahead and stop recording now. Will that stop the whole thing or no?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. But what I want to do